All right, here we are with another lecture video in philosophy and film. This lecture's topic is part 2 of Body and Soul. In this one, we're going to look at the view of Lucretius. We're going to contrast his view, which is known as materialism, with the dualism that we looked at in the previous lecture video, and then talk a little bit about our viewing for this topic, which is Frankenstein. Just to remind us of the question we're exploring in this class, which is what am I, or what is human nature, what is a human person? Or the idea goes back to Socrates' slogan that he took from the Oracle at Delphi, which is know yourself. And one view that people have about what a human person is that we're some kind of composite body and soul. And last time we looked at the dualism of Augustine, who believes that a person is a body and a soul. Soul and body are different kinds of stuff, but you need them both together to make you yourself. Now, a different view from his dualism is a view known as materialism. Another way to put it is the idea that everything is matter in motion. And by matter, the materialists mean physical matter. And this view goes back to an ancient view called atomism, the view that everything is made of atoms. So souls, if they exist, would also have to be made of atoms, since everything that exists is made of atoms, according to this view. That is, everything is made of physical matter. One of the big proponents of this view is a Roman philosopher named Lucretius. Now, his view is materialistic, so he assumes materialism. He assumes this atomism, it's called. And so he starts with that as a premise. Remember, Augustine started with claims of his religious faith as his starting premises. Lucretius doesn't start there. He starts with this materialistic view. Everything that exists is made of matter. So if souls exist, then they must be material. He thinks that souls do exist. He thinks that they make us alive. Therefore, they're our life essence. The soul is also the same as our mind, our personality. Remember, we looked at different views on what the soul is. One was that it's the life essence, which is the ancient view on the soul, and another was that the soul is what makes up our mind or our personality. So he thinks, yes, obviously, things have souls that make them alive, and obviously humans at least have minds, so they must have souls. So if souls do exist, and if everything that exists must be material, we can conclude that souls must be material, just like everything else. He thinks they're finer kind of atoms, like would make up something like smoke or breath or air or something like that, but nonetheless they're still made of atoms, and that's his view. But he also believes that souls are mortal, and just because souls are material, it doesn't follow that they have to be mortal. So Lucretius thinks that souls are material, based on his materialism, and moreover, he thinks that souls are mortal, but he has to give an argument for that. Remember, we're talking about arguments using reason here. And so, well, what is his argument? He gives a couple of different arguments. I just want to focus on one pretty briefly here. So he argues by analogy. He thinks, well, bodies get sick and suffer. We have disease. We have other things that afflict our body, and we see these, and they're pretty obvious. And bodies also eventually die, and usually they typically die from some kind of sickness. And so he says, well, souls also get sick and suffer. We have things like, we'd call mental illnesses. We have, loss of mental powers, cognitive powers as we get older. We also suffer psychologically in various ways. So he says, well, that's just like bodies. Bodies get sick and suffer. Souls get sick and suffer. So if bodies eventually die, he concludes that, well, souls must eventually die as well. So this is just one of his arguments for the soul's mortality, right? So he thinks that, well, when you die, for a brief period, maybe your soul is still alive, but then it leaves the body. As the body decomposes, the atoms break up, so the atoms of the soul have to break up as well and disperse. Even though the atoms live forever, the organization that they're in that makes the soul does not. So that's Lucretius's argument for the mortality of the soul. So, different views on mind and body. There's dualism, which we looked at last time. Idea is that the mind, or the soul, is a non-physical spiritual substance, and the body is a physical substance. Materialism, the mind is a physical substance, and the body is a physical substance. Dualism means two, mind, body, different kinds of substance. Materialism, mind and body, or if you want to call mind soul, soul and body, made out of matter, same kind of stuff. So that's the distinction between the views. It's what we call a metaphysical distinction. Okay, so we looked at two views on body and soul. One, that body and soul are different kind of things, but on Augustine's view, you need both to make you a person, to make you who you are. Lucretius's view that soul and body are the same kind of stuff, matter, but you still need both to make you a living human person. So the viewing for this topic is the film that's based on the novel Frankenstein, which had the subtitle Or the Modern Prometheus, which was written by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley and published first in 1818. And the book is subtitled The Modern Prometheus because Shelley wanted us to think of the myth of Prometheus from the ancient Greeks. Prometheus was this titan who stole fire from the gods, in one version of the story at least, and gave it to human beings. And this allowed human beings, this technology allowed them to do a lot of great things, but also led to them doing a lot of bad things. And for doing this, Prometheus was punished by the gods, and he was chained to a rock, and then a bird of prey would eat out his liver every day, and then every night it would grow back, and he was doomed to this fate for eternity. And so Shelley saw Dr. Frankenstein as being like Prometheus. He creates this technology, or discovers this technology that looks like it can do great things, but leads to terrible consequences down the road, and things don't work out so well for Dr. Frankenstein in the story. And so it's a common theme you see in science fiction up to this day, where the technology that we invent to make our lives better ends up making them worse. They have unintended consequences. So the part of the viewing for this lesson is Frankenstein, the film version, which was made in 1931, was the first one. And so there's a part in the earlier part of the film, in the first half, that we're primarily focused on, although the whole film is worth seeing, and you should probably watch it at some point in your life just to be familiar with it. So that ends our video lecture on body and soul. Cheers.